Crap.
Uh-huh. Do you have the day off today?
No, nope.
Ah.
Not even a little bit.
All right, well then I won't rub it in too much. I'll just let
Yeah.
my question speak for itself.
Yeah.
I obviously asked for a reason.
And no, my company doesn't give us a day off until May. That's our first quote unquote holiday, even though like most of the world has had like two or three paid holidays by then.
Seriously.
So that's but whatever. They give me like Christmas Eve off and like they pay for Christmas Eve and uh Black Friday basically. So we get both Thanksgiving and the day after and so I'm like, all
Christmas
right,
Eve and Christmas Day, but
I'll take it. It sucks. But I mean, first world problems,
oh yeah, yeah, and
you
I
know.
mean, right now you're employed, which is,
Exactly.
that's something.
Yeah. 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 It is something. But before the darkness of my depression at the job that I work sets in, let's hit an intro and jump into it. Welcome to the podcast, Blue Collar Scholars. Not long ago, a group of brilliant minds met together at a pub to discuss their unfinished works. They recognized the value of coming together around delicious beverages and having meaningful conversations. That group was known as the Inklings. The Inkle podcast here, we're working to be the second iteration of that group. So, pour yourself a craft beverage, pull up a chair, and join the conversation. I'm just trying to lighten it up.
Oh my gosh. Wait, hold on. Just to be clear, I'm just trying to lighten things up by talking about how depressed I am. Okay. All right. That figuring some things out. We're good.
Oh man, have you had anything good to drink?
Yeah, man. Actually, just today. So I was. I'll just mention it very briefly. I was off the clock today, but next weekend we've got a men's retreat at the school that we're putting on, and so myself and the dean got together to just talk about some final logistical things with that. But we met up at Black Rock Coffee.
Okay, I've been wanting to try them out. They're a big chain, but they're popping up everywhere.
Yeah, that was kind of it's a place I've heard good things about, and so I was like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. And yeah, it was pretty tasty. It was definitely one of those things. I got a massive drip. When they asked what size, I said, "What's the biggest one you've got?" And so, when I drank it at first, really hot, coming straight off it, and I'm not good at patience. So first, I scalded all of my taste buds to make sure I wouldn't notice anything.
Yep.
But there was still, kind of that chocolate base that we look for in a lot of the stuff we do. But as it started to get kind of closer to room temperature or warm without, again, burning my mouth, there was like kind of just sort of a fruit note to it.
Okay.
It wasn't the citrus brightness, but there was something. I wouldn't go so far as to say that it was like juicy, because it definitely wasn't. But there were like some of those. Is it the stone fruit that has kind of like the mild kind of dark sweetness to it?
So a stone fruit is a cherry, an apricot, a plum.
Okay, so there might have been something along those lines, because like plum is probably the closest that I'm going to get from like my actual database to what it was. It was though. It was tasty. And it did the job. It kept that, it was actually really kind of cool. It's like, oh, here's a meaningful conversation happening over a beverage I'm really enjoying. How lovely.
Nice.
But yeah, it was good, man.
Nice. I'm gonna try them out. They opened one not too far from my place, and the fact that they actually have a second flavor note in their coffee is kind of a big deal for a big chain, in my opinion.
Yeah, the fact that it wasn't just like burnt and let's see what happens.
Or exactly a one note, usually burned thing there. Yeah, nice. Yeah, I actually had a coffee too that was surprisingly good. Went to Dolce Vita, which is a little local shop, and I've kind of been watching their journey on Instagram. So it's like two girls. I think they started a farmer's market, had a cart, opened up a shop, they priced, like when the market went crazy, they like raised the rent on them to basically,
Oof.
passively evict them. So then they had to start over, and then they were in another building, and so they've had like this pretty interesting journey to get there. And so I finally was out on that side of town, so I stopped in, and it's a little bit more hippie than it wasn't my vibe. The
Right,
place
right.
wasn't. They were like, "What kind of milk would you like?" I was like, "Oh, just regular milk." They go, "Oh, we have almond, oat, and coconut."
Yeah, like legitimately, milk is the only kind we do not have.
Yeah, cow's milk? None of that, huh? Okay, all right. um, uh, but it was something like their winter latte or something, and it was cinnamon, nutmeg, I don't know, like a brown sugar syrup, and then it had an orange zest in it.
Oh,
So it was
nice.
really interesting. And then you add the espresso. The espresso was really chocolatey, so it was kind of brown, spicy, and then it had this just enough citrus zest in it to brighten it up. Like it was kind of almost like if you took a chocolate covered orange, those kind of
Yeah,
things,
yeah, yeah.
sprinkled some like cinnamon on it. It was not bad, man.
I was gonna say that doesn't sound like something I would hate.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, I was 50-50. That's the one I'm sticking to because I got another one and it was like so meh that we were just like, man, that was not even worth talking about. So it was, but at least one of them was really good. So I
Nice.
was, yeah. And they found their tribe. I mean, I was into there doing like a tarot card reading in the corner, and I'm just like, this is not me.
Yeah, that
I'm
is.
gonna
I mean,
take
that.
mine to go.
Yeah, that is pretty supremely not us. But if the drinks are good, that's what you're there for.
that
But
that's what I was there for then.
yeah,
Right. Which is, yep, why I don't go back. That and that it's like an hour drive away. So
oofta.
yeah, yeah. So well, all right. I think we're planning on wrapping up our gushing of the Silmarillion.
Yeah, until the next time, because like
Yeah.
I'm literally at all times just sitting here waiting for an opportunity to pry
Mhm.
this door back open and be like, hey, there's so much more here. But yeah, no, I think there are so many people who are like at a level of depth when they're talking about Tolkien that is just like something beautiful and impressive.
Mhm.
It's quite frankly not us. Like this is intro level, like our
Yeah.
thoughts that are triggered by it. And I'm always here for a Tolkien appreciation. But
Yeah.
if someone is looking for like a deep dive into the world of Tolkien, you just go ahead and you hit me up. I will let you know about one of the like 15 different podcasts out there that I
Yeah.
have come across that are phenomenal.
Yeah, it's surprising how rich it is. So I would also warn like those of you who like if it did pique your interest and you get out there, like the Tolkien nerds aren't always the most gracious because it's like a super highbrow nerdiness. They
Yeah,
can
for
be
some of
like,
them, it really, really is.
yeah, they can be very not nice sometimes. So like I'm in a couple of Facebook groups, and like the Tolkien one is always the most like I have to, like if I ever post anything, like I have to like double triple over it on everything because they don't even like if you say that it's a quote by Tolkien, but it's from the books, they're like, this is not by Tolkien. This was spoken by Galadriel on page 57, verse 4, type 3. This is erroneously misquoted. Administrator, we ask you to remove this post. And I was like, I was like, whatever, dude. I can't do
Okay.
it, man.
Jeez. Yeah, no, that's a level of intensity that
Yeah.
like
Yeah, that's again, not me,
yeah.
but it's good, man. Like the Tolkien stuff is super rich. And I think the big thing that stuck out to me because it kind of resonates with what I'm working on this whole year is uh just the idea of stewardship. And so there was this idea that popped into my brain early, and it was a question that I like it's from the beginning of the book. So like it would have made sense for us to talk about it at the very beginning. But it also kind of makes sense to do it as the wrap up because really when you're looking at all of it, I mean this is kind of the whole thing, right? Like
Yeah.
and so the rhetorical question is if you were plucked up and placed in the Garden of Eden, what would you do?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Would you kick your feet up and relax in paradise? Or would you go work like gardening and brushing animals and I don't know
Yeah. What?
the work that would need to be done.
Right. Whatever the work was,
Yeah.
and we do know that there was some, but that it wasn't toil. Like it
Right.
wasn't like, yeah. I don't know, man. So I'll be honest. When I saw that question, I was like, I mean, I
There's
don't know
the
why there's a second option after kick your feet up and lounge. All of the food is like on the trees. Just go grab some when you're hungry. But at the same time, like the more I sat there with it, the more I'm like, you know what? Actually, I say that, but I say that as someone who doesn't consistently have the option. Because as soon as I do over a longer period of time, like there is something great about genuine rest and like
mm,
resting, but it quickly becomes like an idleness that actually does drive me nuts.
mm-hmm.
Like if I've got, even just a couple weeks off for the Christmas break, it's one of those things where I've got to schedule some things for me to do.
Yeah.
I've got to have a list of things for me to knock out and take care of, even if they're not super impressive or super big. But like, as much as I love the idea of saying, 3-day weekend, I am going to take at least one, if not two of those days to just never leave my room. I will
Mm-hmm.
get up long enough to go get something to eat and then I will lay back down. And it sounds really appealing until I try and do it.
Yeah.
And then, like, it's so clear that that's not what I'm made for.
Right. But we run at 100 miles an hour nonstop. And so like when you're just burning the candle at both ends, the only thing you can think of is not doing something.
Yep.
And we've done, I don't know, like 5 or 6 podcasts on rest versus or
Yeah, like actual leisure
leisure. That's what it
versus
is, leisure versus rest or
idleness.
something.
Yeah.
And so I think that's an interesting point, is the opportunity to rest is so few and far between that I have to admit that like my gut response was also like what I would really want to do is, you know, take a minute. Like I would probably want to, because again, that's
Yeah.
how I'm like when I go camping, right? Camping would be the best comparison for me to, um, actually, this might like bite me in the butt actually as I'm thinking through it. But like when we go camping, I actually am so wound so tight that like I'm a busybody, like I'm working and organizing and doing and chopping wood and gathering, and I can't relax. And it takes me a little while. And then I can learn to kind of settle in and I can work and relax at the same time. And so I guess for me, actually, like my emotional response, because when I'm here at the house, like I'm go, go, go. And I just want to relax. But then my experience is that when I have the opportunity to relax, I'm incapable of it. But it's not enjoyable. Like that first day
Right.
of vacation isn't nice for me. Like it's a lot of stress because like it's just like all of my built up stress just pouring out of my everything. And so that's interesting because I also think as you were talking about the opportunity for rest, as soon as you said opportunity, my brain switched over to something different. And it was the opportunity to do something that you love.
And that's kind of where I was getting ready to go too, because it was like, I think the big difference is like that first day, what you're talking about is toil. It's the
Yes.
list of things that you feel like absolutely positively must get done or else everything else falls apart.
Right.
And then once you kind of get to that like part where I thought it was so incredible when you talked about the idea of being able to work and relax at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Because now it's like, oh, you know what? Actually, I'm doing this, and yeah, it needs to happen, but I'm enjoying the doing.
Yeah.
And I think bringing it back into the Silmarillion, that's kind of what we see with the Valar when they enter into creation. Like that's their choice to
Mm-hmm.
come down and enter into creation. And the reason is because they are so in awe of and in love with what they were shown as the vision
Yeah.
of what their song has done,
Mm-hmm.
that they desire to be close to it and to work with it. And again, like there's not this. A couple of things that stand out to me about that is, number one, they choose. They weren't sent.
Right.
Like Iluvatar didn't say, okay, so now that you've
Mm.
sung, go make it happen. Instead, it's like they see the vision of how it's going to play out, and they're like, we want to be part of that. And so they're
Yeah.
allowed to go. And so the work that they do from the time that they enter into Arda, into the world, is this joyous work that, like, they know its purpose,
Mm-hmm.
they know its beauty and its goodness, and they know its possibility, that it's not an idle waste of their time, that their work isn't going to be just
Right.
suddenly undone. And so they find this great joy of fulfilling that. Like, oh,
Mm.
these are the things that we begun, and now we get to participate and engage in it.
Right.
And I think it's like the difference between like any task that I'm doing because I have to. You know, there's that saying, the best way to ruin a hobby is to make it your job.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of what it comes down to for the Valar. It's never a job. Like, yes, it's something important. Yes, it is a responsibility, but it's their desire to see it happen,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and not some outside, like, do this or else.
Right. And uh it's not a light work either.
Mm-mm.
Like I'm trying to think of, can't remember her name, but the lady who made the trees, I
Mm-hmm.
believe. I don't remember her name. She's a big
Yeah,
one. But
I want
anyway,
to help out.
but like she sang and thought and did whatever Valar do to create them. But like I think it said something like she had to like lay down, like she's like she had to take a nap after that work. Like she had worked so hard for so long that it like drained her. And so like it was interesting that in making these things and the pursuit of them, it wasn't just, hey, this is, like I'm naming fruit. It wasn't like, hey, that's an apple and it's delicious. He
Yeah,
wasn't just sitting there tasting things, which is the job I would want in Eden. But like it was legit hard work, and it was, like you said, it was driven by desire, but there's also kind of this, I'm trying to connect it to the what is it? The true, the good, the beautiful.
those transcendentals,
Yeah.
one, good, true, and beautiful.
Yeah. Like they kind of knew the truth because they were with Iluvatar, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
now their work is like bringing out the good and the beautiful. They're like opening it up, right? So that they already have it. Their Manway's, basically in communication with Iluvatar the whole time.
Yeah,
And so like their work is not, it's worship.
it is. And like it's this whole idea of subcreation that I think, like, applies so much to our own lives as well. Like, we talk all the time about being created in the image and likeness of God.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's true for them as well. They are reflections of Eru Iluvatar's goodness and who he is. And they're participants in his work in bringing about his vision. But like that's why the work of creation is so important and so natural to them,
Mm-hmm.
because it's literally they're created as a reflection of a creator, which means they can't be more themselves than they are in those moments when they're doing it.
When they're creating.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And like this idea that they are able to, like you said, open up what's already there. Everything in Arda that is ever going to be is already there from the time that they're entering in after the song has been sung.
Mm-hmm.
But it's about bringing it to the surface, manifesting it, making it real. And that connection, that connection that they have to Iluvatar, that is what's like driving them forward, because it's not about this goes back to something we were talking about, I think, on the last podcast when we were talking about the greed and stuff, is it's not about their glory.
Right.
Like, they're
Right.
not making these things and then claiming, aha, I have made this.
Yeah.
Instead, it's, oh, Iluvatar showed us this, and I want to bring it, like, to life
Right.
now.
Yeah. The
Like,
one who did say I made this is the one who started it all downhill.
exactly. Yeah. He started that first step downhill that, Arda never really fully bounces back from in this story.
Yeah. And, like you kind of switched it up on me a little bit. So, like, as we moved from, creation into the hero tales, as I kind of call it, I really resonated with the hero tales because I like the I don't know if you'd call it Norse, Anglo-Saxon, like that area's the idea of striving even
Yes.
in the face of defeat, like the Vikings, even if you were in, glorious death, basically, like even though Tolkien did not do glorious death, but the idea of like even in the face of defeat, like you still win, right? That's the Valar.
Yes.
And so I was really kind of grasping onto that concept in it to where like I was seeing the striving to hold, like even if there was a pinpoint of light, like you would still face a world of darkness for that pinpoint of light, even if you knew you were going to lose. But you kind of rearranged it a little bit for me, and I'm thinking about the fall, right? Because like in the Silmarillion, there's not really a fall of creation, right? There is not creation as good and then it is cursed.
Mm-hmm.
And it is now a sub level, or it's a creation separated from God. Right. And so what it is Melkor, right? He sins, basically fall, like changes it, and he brings darkness. And what he seems to do is kind of he's the one that kind of brings a cloud that separates, right? Like it's not necessarily a Iluvatar who pushes creation away because they're evil.
Mm-hmm.
Melkor kind of brings darkness in, and which creates a contrast, light versus dark. And so now I'm sitting here going, okay, if you have a darkness and this work of creation is to bring forth like light, like how do I reconcile that with our concept of, the fall of mankind and creation? And I'm like, do we kind of have it wrong in which we not totally, not theologically, but like where we're like, hey, I'm a fallen creature, but like, and I can't do anything good, but like our job is to bring out, like, are you tracking with me at all? Like,
Yeah, no, I am. I'm picking up what you're laying down.
Like,
but I think
definitely working in go.
So I think
I'm lost.
The
I got
baton's
an
been
idea,
handed.
but I am like stuck.
So I think part of it is, again, that somewhat of a misunderstanding in terms of like the Valar. The Valar aren't us.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they're the angelic beings.
Mm-hmm.
They're the one, again, as close as a parallel exists.
Right.
But when we look at, the realities of the children of Iluvatar, the elves and men, then I think we see a lot more kind of what you're talking about with that. And that's who the hero tales are about. Right?
Okay.
And so from their perspective, they are like, because of Morgoth's and then eventually Sauron's corrupting influence, their connection to and their ability to understand and encounter Iluvatar is being damaged.
You're right. And the Numenorians, after like their Valar is legitimately separated.
Yeah,
like,
I was just going to bring that up.
You're right.
There is
you're right.
like the actual fall where like the land of Valinor is actually like, so in the mythology, it's actually a really cool thing that I kind of always look past until I start geeking out again, which, takes about 30 seconds or so for that to trigger. But like the world is originally flat in the mythos of the Silmarillion. And it's not until Valinor is like pulled away after the Numenorians commit this massive sin. And it is the sin of the fall. It is the grasping at what is not theirs. The one thing they were told not to do. In the Bible, it's eating the fruit from the tree of knowledge.
Yeah.
In the Silmarillion, it's, look, man have been given the gift of their
Death.
doom, their judgment of
Yeah.
death, like that they will leave Arda. And so for them to try and grasp the immortality of the first children of the elves by trying to go to Valinor and claim for themselves by force this eternal life in Arda, that is the fall. They have attempted to make
You're right.
themselves the gods, and as a result of that, Valinor, while still technically in the realm of Arda, is like separated, and now the globe is completed such that no matter how far west they sail, they will never be able. There is no
That's kind of
there is no more Valinor to the west.
that's fun. That's really good. I like that. That's an interesting way for making the world round. Like I love that.
It's I love it so much. He's
And you know what's got me, I think, is that the fall in the Bible happens so fast, right? Like it's like one of the first thing. Like there's
yeah.
creation and then you fall, right? Like it's 1, 2. And here, like we're spending so much time in Valinor, and you're right, creation was not separated when Satan was cast down, right? Like his sin did not cause the separation of earth. And I think that's what I was looking for, because I mean, even but I mean, like even the elves sin, right?
Yep.
Feanor does the kin slaying and stuff like, but they're separated, but it's a different type of separate. Like, when they leave, they're like, hey, just so you know, when you go, we're not with you. You're on your own, and so like it's gonna suck out there without our help. And he says, screw you, pal. I'm going anyway.
Yeah. Pretty much.
And so there is, to a lesser degree, the fall, like a separation. And then again, it's compounded with the humans because we are the humans. So, okay, that makes a lot more sense, because I was having trouble finding the parallel, but we're a little early in the story now
Yeah.
because the
Well,
Valar are there. But the idea of the bringing the good through, like co-creating, right? Like I'm on that. I'm stuck on that, like co-creating, which is bringing forth a good that we already know. And so I feel like there's something to grab hold of there, is that, like maybe we should be doing something creative that brings good, truth, and beauty into the world. And if we're not, are we not doing what we're supposed to?
no, I think that's not even in my mind. That's not even really a question. Like that is absolutely a fact. If we are not doing something that is creating, like co-creating, sub-creating, emphasizing, bringing back into focus what's one good, true, and beautiful in God's creation, then we're kind of just wasting our time. But what I would say is we need to be careful not to too narrowly define the idea of creation. You know, when you come up with a way to explain something to your daughters such that like their little brains are able to in some way kind of connect something to something that's good, that's creating. You've taken what is already there, this truth that's out there, and you've created a picture of it for them that they can understand. So it's not necessarily that like we have to be, you know, I'm not going to be Michelangelo. You can
Right.
see the very boring white ceiling above my head. It's never going to be the Sistine Chapel.
Right.
For one thing, because I rent and I would lose my deposit. But more importantly, because God has given me many gifts.
Yeah.
Artistic ability ain't one of them. Not even close. I joke all the time with my students, like when I'm doing something where like there's an artistic element, I'm like, look, don't stress over it. I can't make a stick figure where the arms are the same length. Like I'm not here to like grade you on that. But we're by our nature, we are creative. And that reality is kind of for me what the life lesson is this idea of finding ways, and it is that idea of subcreation where there was some scientist, I can't remember his name, but he said very kind of tongue-in-cheek, if a person wishes to make an apple pie from scratch, they must first create the universe. Like this idea that like, that humble recognition that we need to have of like, I'm not here to actually completely create something new. I'm going to take the things that God has already made and has already put in play, and I'm going to arrange those to the best of my ability to cooperate with where He's put me. And so it is this idea of, again, I'm going to go ahead and double down and go to my other favorite author, G.K. Chesterton, who he basically said, no one has ever succeeded at being creative by trying to be.
Mm-hmm.
Original thoughts come in original moments of inspiration. And so I would say, yes, we have to be participating in our role as co creators, but it's very rarely going to be intentional. It's a lot more about doing the best we can in the situations we find ourselves in and having that connection to God, such that what we do, if we're constantly striving for Him, kind of going back to what you said, striving after that little pinprick of light that's coming through, then everything we build, everything we make, everything we create is going to be moving in that direction. Some of them are going to eventually lead to dead ends where we've got to turn around.
Right.
But they're all going to be bringing us closer than we were before we started.
I like that. I like that because I've had, I was using, you know, play on Solomon where I would say that, like there was never been an original idea. There's just original ways of saying old ideas, like
Yeah.
kind of the nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
Um, but it's true, like you're right. Like all of the truth is already there in God. It's the subcreation that we participate in is the bringing that out,
Yeah.
bringing it, making it known. And that was all really good. I really liked it. Okay, so for me, my life lesson around it is as a creative, like I felt a lot with all of this subcreation and stuff like that because like as a writer, right? Like I feel different when I'm writing, right? Like when I'm storytelling, like it's hard, but it's energizing and it's exciting and then it's aggravating and it's all of these things that I could do day in and day out, tirelessly and passionately, you know, granted, like I said, I have another lovely day job to do, but the idea like I'm working on my book right now. I told you that I'd shelved it for like 10 years because it overwhelmed me.
Yeah.
And now I'm pulling it back out and it's like, you know what? Like I decided that it's not going to be perfect when I publish it because I can't afford like a perfect, editor and all of these things. So my friend's going to edit it and we're going to put it out there. And as you were kind of saying there, we're moving forward by the act of creation and bringing it out there. It's not perfect and it's never going to be perfect, but we're kind of falling forward. We're kind of like imperfectly moving in the right direction and we're not going to hit the perfect note every single time or the perfect story or any of that stuff, but just the act of that sub creation and working and pulling these ideas together and bringing them out into the world, even if they're not perfect, but getting them out there, you kind of start to lean in that direction, like you're riding a bicycle and you just start to lean and you turn and you go in that way. And I think that, so I guess in summary, my life lesson is to do it, right? Like don't let fear hold you back. Like participate in the thing that you're called, the gifts that you have that are creative and get them out there. Share them. Don't let them sit in a closet forever. Even if it's imperfect, even if, Jerky McJerkface talks trash about it, that's fine, right? Because God will use that to grow you. But get it out there because it's going to strike a chord with someone. And if your sub creation can touch one life that changes the trajectory of their everlasting life 1 degree, then that effort was absolutely worth it.
100%, man. Could not agree more. And it ties back into what you were talking about before, too, that idea of stewardship. Like that recognition that what you're trying to point out when you create something is not your truth. It's a reality of the world that you're trying to
Mm-hmm.
make known. And it's all about creating as many different signposts pointing in that direction as possible.
Oh yeah,
So that
that's good.
the more signposts there are, the more likely people are to find it.
Yeah.
And so like it doesn't matter that it's not perfect. It doesn't matter that the ink is smudged when you wrote "This Way to God" on there. Like it doesn't, that's not the important thing. The important thing is that it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And that God knew you were putting it out there. And he knows who's going to like see it and recognize it.
Yep. 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 Love it. Love it. Oh boy, I did not think we had 5 podcasts in us out of this thing, but or whatever we did. But
I've got
makes
another
total
20
sense.
ready to go. I'm just not putting them on the list yet. I don't want to terrify you or our listeners. I'm going to hold off.
I was gonna say I would have to go back and read it again to go that deep, man. Dang. But if you are gonna go that deep on some Tolkien nerdum, be sure that you have some 9 rings to go along with it. Hop on that website, grab some coffee. That's how you support this podcast. We don't really have any commercials or anything, so we sell coffee, and we would love to roast some fresh for you and send it to you. Oh yeah, we also have some cool swag. AJ's rocking his old school shirt. No school like the old school. And we got some other cool ones. I think I have some other designs I'll load on there eventually, but there's some good ones. Jump on there. Yeah, your support is greatly appreciated. Got anything else on your mind, man?
Ah, no, man. I'm good for tonight.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. With that, everybody, we will say
Adieu.